The arrival. Captain Morgan Reed rubbed her temples as the soft but persistent alarm continued to chime through the bridge of the TSS Athena. The experimental warship had been conducting stealth system tests in high Earth orbit when the alert from Lunar Defense Station Artemis disrupted their exercises. "Report," she demanded, sitting straighter in her command chair. Her executive officer, Commander Javier Santos, transferred data to the main display with a swift gesture. 7 objects just appeared at the edge of Saturn's orbit, Captain, Santos explained, his normally relaxed expression now tense. They didn't arrive via jump points or any known FTL method. They simply materialized. Reed's gray eyes narrowed as she studied the readings. Humanity had been exploring the solar system for decades, establishing colonies on Mars and mining operations throughout the asteroid belt. Despite numerous automated probes sent to nearby star systems, they had never encountered another intelligent species, but they had prepared for the possibility. "Size comparison," she asked. "The largest is approximately 8 kilometers in length. The smallest still measures over 2 kilometers. Nothing in our fleet comes close to that scale," Santos replied. Reed tapped a command into her console. "Alert Fleet Command, authorization Reed Delta 41. We have a potential first contact scenario." Within minutes, the highest levels of Earth's defense force were activated. The Athena, despite its unassuming exterior, carried technological secrets that remained classified at the highest levels. Only a handful of ships in Earth's fleet had been equipped with these systems, developed after the discovery of the mysterious artifacts beneath Europa's ice 20 years earlier. "They're accelerating toward Earth," Lieutenant Kai Chen reported from the sensor station. "At current velocity, they'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 12 hours. Reed nodded. "Deploy passive observation drones. Let's learn everything we can before they arrive." As the Athena maintained its position, 2 sister ships, the Hermes and the Orion, moved to flank it. All 3 vessels appeared to be standard military cruisers, nothing that would suggest the technological marvels hidden within their hulls. The mysterious objects continued their approach, passing Jupiter's orbit without slowing. The observation drones transmitted their findings, and the picture became clearer. These weren't merely ships. They were city-sized vessels with crystalline structures that caught the distant sunlight in ways that defied conventional material science. "They're broadcasting," Communications Officer Lee Williams announced suddenly. It appears to be directed at Earth generally, not at us specifically." "On screen," Reed ordered. The main view screen flickered before displaying an image that made several bridge officers gasp. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall with obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light. Multiple appendages moved with fluid grace, and compound eyes reflected the light in kaleidoscopic patterns. "People of Earth," the being began, its words translated through an algorithm that analyzed pattern and intent rather than direct language. "I am Supreme Commander Vorax of the Krellic Dominion. Your species has been monitored and assessed for the past 3 of your years. You have been found lacking in galactic standards and unsuitable for Alliance status." Reed exchanged glances with Santos. 3 years of monitoring. Earth's detection systems had never picked up any sign of observation. The alien continued. "The resources of your world will be harvested for the greater glory of the Dominion. You will have 48 hours to prepare your population for processing. Those with useful skills will be retained for labor. Resistance is futile and will result in immediate planetary sterilization." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Reed stood slowly. "Well, that was direct." "Captain," Santos whispered, "we need to activate the Prometheus Protocol." Reed nodded grimly. The Prometheus Protocol had been developed after scientists deciphered the warnings contained in the Europa artifacts. Warnings about predatory species that viewed developing civilizations as resources rather than potential allies. "Fleet-wide communication, tight beam only," Reed ordered. "Authorization to activate Prometheus Protocol approved. All ships prepare for defensive operations." Throughout the solar system, Disguised defense platforms that had remained dormant for years began powering up systems. Within the asteroid belt, mining operations suddenly revealed themselves to be weapons platforms of extraordinary power. On Mars and the Moon, hidden hangars opened to deploy fighter squadrons, unlike anything the public had ever seen. The Krellick vessels positioned themselves in Earth orbit, their massive forms casting shadows over major cities below. Panic spread across the planet as the alien armada hovered ominously overhead. Global news networks broadcast continuous footage of the otherworldly ships, while governments attempted to maintain order. In the engineering section of the Athena, Dr. Eliza Nakamura made final adjustments to the ship's quantum displacement system, technology that bent space in ways the Krellick believed impossible for primitive species. The system's activation would be the linchpin of humanity's response. Engineering to bridge, Nakamura called over the comm. Prometheus systems are at 98% synchronization across all platforms. We'll be ready on your mark. Reed acknowledged the report before turning to Tactical Officer Lieutenant Damon Wells. Status of our sister ships and defense platforms. All in position, Captain, Wells replied. The Krellick haven't even bothered scanning them thoroughly. They're dismissing our maintenance vessels and satellites as non-threats. Their attention is focused entirely on the planet. On the main view screen, a live feed showed the United Nations General Assembly, where world leaders had gathered to discuss the Krellick ultimatum. The Secretary-General stood at the podium, his face grim but determined. The nations of Earth will not surrender to intimidation, he declared. We extend an offer of peaceful dialogue to the Krellick Dominion, but we will not submit to slavery or extinction. The response came quickly. 3 smaller Krellick vessels detached from the main fleet and positioned themselves over New York, Beijing, and Moscow. A clear threat. They're powering weapons, Chen reported, his voice tight. Reed nodded. This was the moment they had trained for. All ships, execute Prometheus protocol on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Throughout Earth orbit, concealed energy signatures flared to life. The unassuming human vessels suddenly emitted fields that distorted space around them. To the Krellick sensors, it would appear as if the ships had vanished, only to reappear in completely different positions. They're confused, Wells reported with grim satisfaction. Their targeting systems are trying to compensate. All ships, weapons free, Reed ordered. Primary targets are their weapon emplacements and propulsion systems. Avoid their central command structures if possible. The Athena's hull shimmered as concealed weapon ports opened, revealing systems based on principles discovered in the Europa artifacts. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, striking the nearest Krellick vessel with surgical precision. Where the beams touched, the crystalline structure of the alien ship appeared to simply unravel. Direct hits, Wells reported. Their shields are attempting to adapt, but they've never encountered phase-shifted quantum weaponry before. The other Earth vessels joined the attack, creating a coordinated assault that targeted multiple Krellick ships simultaneously. The defense platforms hidden throughout the solar system activated, launching swarms of autonomous drones that moved with impossible speed and precision. On the main view screen, the Krellick commander reappeared, its compound eyes reflecting chaotic patterns that suggested confusion or alarm. What technology is this? It demanded. Your species was assessed as pre-stellar. You cannot possess these capabilities. Reed allowed herself a small smile before responding. Commander Vorax, perhaps your assessment of humanity was incomplete. We are not as primitive as you assumed. We request that you withdraw your forces immediately. The Krellick vessel attempted to bring its main weapons to bear on the Athena, but the human ship shifted position again, appearing instantaneously 10 kilometers from its previous location. Their largest vessel is targeting major population centers, Santos reported urgently. Reed's expression hardened. Focus all fire on their weapons arrays. Protect those cities at all costs. The battle above Earth intensified as the Krellick realized they were facing something unexpected. Their formation, initially perfect and rigid, began to break apart as individual captains reacted to the threat. This was not the simple harvesting operation they had anticipated. In the depths of the Athena's engineering section, Dr. Nakamura monitored the quantum displacement system with growing concern. "Bridge, this is engineering. The system wasn't designed for this many consecutive jumps. We're approaching critical stress levels." Reed grimaced. The Prometheus systems were still experimental, pushed into service by the discovery of the Krullik approach. "Hold it together, Doctor. We just need to convince them we're not worth the trouble." On the tactical display, Reed could see that the tide was turning. Two of the smaller Krullik vessels were already retreating, their crystalline structures damaged beyond immediate repair. The remaining ships were attempting to coordinate their response, but Earth's forces continued their irregular attack pattern, never staying in one place long enough to become targets. "Captain," Wells called out, "their flagship is powering up something massive. Energy readings are off the charts." Reed leaned forward in her chair. "All ships, focus fire on that flagship. Whatever they're charging, don't let them complete it." The Athena, Hermes, and Orion converged on the massive Krullik vessel, their quantum weapons striking in perfect synchronization. Defense drones swarmed around it, targeting specific points identified by real-time analysis. "It's working," Santos reported. "Their power signatures are fluctuating." Suddenly, the massive alien vessel began to emit a pulsating glow that distorted the very space around it. "They're attempting an emergency jump," Chen shouted. "If they initiate that within Earth's gravity well..." Reed didn't need him to finish. Such a maneuver could tear a hole in space-time, potentially causing catastrophic damage to Earth and its orbital infrastructure. "Dr. Nakamura," Reed called, "we need a targeted displacement field around their drive system. Can you isolate it?" "Theoretically," came the strained reply, "but it would require us to get dangerously close and drop our own protective field." Reed looked around the bridge, meeting the eyes of her crew. They had trained for years, preparing for a day they hoped would never come. Now that it had arrived, there was no hesitation. "Take us in," she ordered. "All power to forward shields." The Athena accelerated toward the massive Krullik flagship, its displacement field collapsing as it diverted power. The alien vessel loomed enormous on the view screen, its crystalline structure now crackling with unstable energy. "Distance to target?" Reed asked, her voice steady despite the danger. 800 kilometers and closing," Chen reported. "Their jump drive is approaching critical initialization. Engineering, stand by to deploy targeted displacement field on my mark," Reed ordered. The distance closed rapidly. 700 kilometers. 600. The Krullik vessel fired desperately at the approaching human ship, but the Athena's advanced shields held. Barely. "In range," Chen announced. 500 kilometers. "Now, Doctor," Reed commanded. From the Athena, a focused beam of energy struck the heart of the Krullik flagship's drive system. Space itself seemed to warp and twist around the point of impact. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with spectacular precision, the alien drive system simply vanished, displaced into empty space thousands of kilometers away. The energy building in the Krullik vessel had nowhere to go. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure as systems overloaded. The crystalline hull began to fracture, pieces drifting apart in the vacuum. "Get us out of here," Reed ordered. "Emergency jump, now." The Athena's displacement field snapped back into place just as the Krullik flagship's power core destabilized completely. The human vessel shifted position, reappearing at a safe distance as a blinding flash marked the end of the alien command ship. Throughout Earth orbit, the remaining Krullik vessels began to retreat, their perfect formation now in disarray. Without their flagship's coordination, they fell back to a defensive posture before accelerating away from Earth. On the bridge of the Athena, the crew watched in stunned silence as the threat that had appeared so overwhelming just hours ago fled before them. "They're retreating past lunar orbit," Chen reported, his voice betraying his disbelief. Continuing acceleration toward the outer system. Reed exhaled slowly, the tension of combat beginning to ebb. Maintain alert status. They might be regrouping. Captain, Williams called from communications. We're receiving transmissions from Earth. Every major news network is broadcasting footage of the battle. The secret's out. Reed nodded slowly. The Prometheus Protocol had been developed in secret, known only to a select few in government and military leadership. The advanced technology derived from the Europa artifacts had been hidden from the public to prevent panic and social disruption. Now that secrecy was no longer an option. Open a channel to Fleet Command, she ordered. Inform them that the Prometheus Protocol was successfully implemented. The immediate threat has been neutralized, but we should prepare for potential retaliation. As the Athena moved to rejoin its sister ships, Reed looked out at the blue planet below. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galactic community in the most dramatic way possible. There would be no going back to the isolation they had known before. What happens now, Captain? Santos asked quietly, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Reed's gaze remained fixed on Earth, its familiar continents and swirling clouds now seeming somehow more precious than ever before. Now, she said, we prepare. This was just first contact. I doubt it will be the last. The counterattack. The retreat of the Krellick vessels had been tactical, not final. Captain Morgan Reed knew this as she studied the holographic display in the Athena's Strategic Command Center. The alien ships had withdrawn to the orbit of Mars, regrouping in a new formation that suggested they were preparing for another assault. They're adapting, Commander Santos observed, gesturing to the sensor data. Look at their emission patterns. They're modifying their shields to counter our quantum weapons. Reed nodded grimly. The element of surprise had given humanity an edge in the first engagement, but the Krellick were proving to be quick learners. Across the table, Admiral Helena Chen, commander of Earth's defense forces, studied the display with narrowed eyes. The Prometheus Protocol bought us time, but we need a more permanent solution, the Admiral stated. The Krellick will return with reinforcements if we don't convince them that Earth is too costly a target. We need to strike before they complete their defensive adaptations, Reed suggested. A targeted operation against their command structure. Admiral Chen considered this a high-risk maneuver. What do you propose, Captain? Reed manipulated the holographic display, highlighting the formation of Krellick vessels. Their hierarchy is rigid. They've repositioned their secondary command ship here. She indicated a vessel slightly smaller than the destroyed flagship but still imposing. If we can neutralize their leadership, their coordination will collapse. You're suggesting a decapitation strike, Santos said quietly. Reed nodded. The Athena's quantum displacement system gives us the best chance to penetrate their defenses. We can deliver a strike team directly into their command center. Admiral Chen's expression remained impassive, but her eyes betrayed concern. The displacement system was never designed for personnel transport, Captain. The risks are significant, Reed acknowledged, but Dr. Nakamura believes it's possible with modifications. The alternative is to wait for them to attack again, this time prepared for our defenses. After a tense silence, Admiral Chen nodded. Prepare your team, Captain. You have 6 hours before we expect the Krellick to complete their adaptations. In the engineering section, Dr. Nakamura worked feverishly to reconfigure the quantum displacement system. Lieutenant Damon Wells assembled a strike team of 12 Marines, specialists in zero combat, and trained for operations in alien environments. The transport will be disorienting, Reed explained to the assembled team. Based on our analysis of Krellick physiology from the battle footage, they process visual information differently than humans. We'll exploit this with targeted sensory overload devices. Wells nodded, his expression serious. Once inside, we'll need to move quickly. Our objective is their command nexus, which we believe is located here. He indicated a section of the holographic ship schematic. We plant quantum disruptors, then extract before detonation. The plan was bold, perhaps reckless, but time was running short. Throughout Earth's defense fleet, ships positioned themselves for a coordinated assault designed to distract the Krellick while the Athena executed its mission. In her quarters, Reed took a moment to record a personal message, knowing the risks of what they were about to attempt. She looked directly into the camera, her gray eyes steady. "If you're viewing this, I likely didn't return. Know that what we're attempting today is necessary. The Europa artifacts warned us about species like the Krellick, expansionist, predatory, unwilling to recognize the rights of emerging civilizations. Today we show them that humanity will not be easily harvested." She paused, considering her next words carefully. The secrecy surrounding the Prometheus Protocol was never about keeping capabilities from our own people. It was about maintaining the element of surprise for this moment. History will judge whether we made the right choice. Reed ended the recording and secured it in the ship's database before heading to the launch bay where her team waited. Dr. Nakamura met her at the entrance, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. "The modifications are complete, Captain, but I must emphasize the experimental nature of what we're attempting. The displacement field was never designed to transport organic matter. Yet here we are," Reed replied with a tight smile. "Your concerns are noted, Doctor. Have you compensated for the Krellick shields?" Nakamura nodded. "The phase variance should allow us to penetrate their defenses, but it will be a rough transition, and we can only maintain the field for 90 seconds once you're inside. After that, you're on your own until extraction." Reed clasped the scientist's shoulder. "That will have to be enough. Stand by for my signal." The strike team boarded the modified transport module, a cylindrical chamber that had been integrated with components of the quantum displacement system. The interior was cramped, filled with both combat equipment and the delicate technology required for the operation. "Comms check," Reed ordered as the team secured themselves. One by one, the Marines responded, their voices steady despite the unprecedented nature of their mission. Wells was the last to confirm, giving Reed a nod of confidence. "Bridge, this is Captain Reed. Strike team is ready for displacement." "Acknowledged, Captain," Santos replied from the bridge. "The fleet is in position. Commencing distraction maneuvers now." Throughout the solar system, Earth's forces engaged the Krellick fleet in a carefully choreographed dance of feints and limited strikes. Weapons fire blazed between vessels as the human ships executed complex evasive patterns, drawing the aliens' attention away from the Athena. In the transport module, Reed felt the familiar hum of the quantum displacement system engaging, but at a frequency she'd never experienced before. The sound rose to a painful pitch as energy filled the chamber. "Displacement in 3, 2, 1. Dr. Nakamura's voice came through the comm, and then reality shifted. For an immeasurable instant, Reed felt as though her consciousness had been stretched across vast distances before snapping back into her body. The transport module materialized within the cavernous interior of the Krellick command ship, surrounded by crystalline structures that pulsed with alien energy. "Status report," Reed gasped, fighting down nausea from the transition. "All present," Wells confirmed after a quick check. "Minor disorientation, but combat ready." Reed activated her helmet's heads-up display, which overlaid tactical information on her visor. "We have 87 seconds before the displacement field collapses. Move out." The strike team exited the module, deploying in a defensive formation. The interior of the Krellick vessel was unlike anything in human experience. Corridors that seemed to shift and realign, surfaces that responded to presence with subtle changes in luminosity. The atmosphere was breathable, but carried strange odors that the filters in their helmets couldn't fully eliminate. "Contact, 30 meters ahead," Wells warned. 3 Krellick emerged from an intersection, their tall forms moving with unnatural grace. They registered the human intruders with visible shock, compound eyes reflecting the team's image in fractal patterns. "Sensory devices, now," Reed ordered. 2 Marines deployed the specialized devices, which activated with a pulse of light calibrated to overload the Krellic visual processing. The aliens recoiled, their coordinated movements dissolving into chaotic flailing as they struggled to orient themselves. "Proceed to the command nexus," Reed ordered. "Non-lethal measures where possible. We want to disable, not massacre." The team moved deeper into the vessel, following the path mapped from external scans. They encountered more Krellic, each group dispatched with the sensory devices. Reed checked her chronometer. 45 seconds until the displacement field collapsed. "Command nexus ahead," Wells reported as they approached a massive chamber filled with pulsating crystalline structures. Detecting multiple signatures consistent with Krellic leadership caste. At the center of the chamber stood a Krellic larger than any they had seen before, its obsidian skin adorned with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow. This was clearly the commander of the vessel. "Deploy disruptors and prepare for extraction," Reed ordered. "Wells, Rodriguez, Chen with me. We'll handle the command group." The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, placing quantum disruptors at key structural points throughout the chamber. These devices, derived from the same technology as the displacement system, would create localized distortions in spacetime, rendering the command nexus inoperable without destroying the entire vessel. The Krellic commander noticed their presence and issued a series of harmonic sounds that reverberated through the chamber. Security units responded immediately, converging on the human intruders with weapons drawn. "Sensory devices depleted," a Marine reported urgently. Reed made a split-second decision. "Fall back to the transport module. Wells, finish placing the primary disruptor. Everyone else, covering fire." The team engaged the approaching Krellic security units. Their weapons, calibrated to the specific vulnerabilities of crystalline technology, disrupted the aliens' armor rather than causing direct physical harm. It was enough to slow their advance, creating the opening Wells needed. "Disruptor placed," he confirmed. "Timer set for 2 minutes." Reed nodded. "All units back to the transport module. Nakamura, prepare for extraction on my mark." The strike team fought their way back through the corridors of the alien vessel, now alive with alarms and responding security forces. Reed's chronometer showed less than 10 seconds before the displacement field collapsed. They wouldn't make it in time. "Nakamura," Reed called over the comm. "The field is collapsing. Can you re-establish?" "Negative, Captain," came the strained reply. "The system requires a reset cycle of at least 30 minutes between displacements. You'll need to reach the extraction point we discussed." Reed had known this was a possibility. "Understood. Proceeding to Plan Bravo. Stand by for extraction in 20 minutes. Plan Bravo was the contingency they had hoped to avoid. Reach an external access point and signal for pickup by one of the Athena's stealth shuttles. It would mean fighting through more of the Krellic vessel while the disruptors counted down to detonation. "Change of plans," Reed informed her team. "We're going exterior. Follow me." They altered course, heading toward the closest hull access point according to their scans. The Krellic response grew more coordinated as the initial confusion from the human intrusion faded. Crystalline barriers formed in corridors, forcing the team to find alternate routes. "Captain, the disruptors activate in 90 seconds, Wells reminded her. Reed consulted her tactical display. "We need to move faster. Use breaching charges on these barriers." The Marines deployed compact explosive devices designed to disrupt the crystalline structure of Krellic technology. The barriers shattered, allowing the team to proceed toward the hull access. They'd reached an airlock chamber just as the ship shuddered violently. "That wasn't us," Reed observed. "Status of the disruptors. Still counting down," Wells confirmed. 45 seconds. Another impact rocked the vessel. On her tactical display, Reed could see that the Earth fleet had intensified its attack, targeting specific systems identified during the first engagement. The distraction was working, perhaps too well. "The ship's structural integrity is compromised," a Marine reported, reading from his scanner. "These hits are causing cascade failures through their power grid." Reed frowned. If the Krellick vessel suffered catastrophic damage before they could evacuate, the mission would succeed at the cost of the entire strike team. Not an acceptable outcome. "Nakamura," she called, "we need that extraction now." Sending coordinates for an emergency pickup. While 2 Marines worked to override the alien airlock controls, the rest of the team formed a defensive perimeter. Krellick security units converged on their position from multiple directions. "Airlock open in 10 seconds, reported one of the Marines at the controls. "But Captain, the atmosphere beyond is venting rapidly. The hull must be damaged." Reed made another quick decision. Full sealed mode. Prepare for vacuum exposure. The team's combat suits sealed completely, transitioning to internal oxygen supply. The airlock cycled open, revealing a section of the Krellick hull that had indeed been breached by weapons fire. Beyond it, the blackness of space beckoned, punctuated by flashes of combat as Earth vessels engaged the alien fleet. "Disruptors activating in 10 seconds, Wells announced. The team secured tether lines and prepared to exit the vessel. As the last Marine cleared the airlock, the ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Reed's tactical display showed cascading failures spreading from the command nexus as the quantum disruptors activated. "All units clear," Reed confirmed as they maneuvered along the exterior of the massive alien vessel. "Nakamura, what's the status of our extraction?" "Shuttle approaching your position," came the response. "ETA 40 seconds. Around them, the battle continued to rage. The Krellick vessels, now lacking coordinated command, responded with increasingly disjointed tactics. Several began to withdraw, while others pressed attacks with reckless abandon. The shuttle appeared, using the damaged hull section as cover from Krellick defenses. Its rear hatch opened, revealing a Marine securing team ready to assist with their recovery. "Move, move," Reed ordered, watching as her team made the precarious transfer from the Krellick hull to the shuttle one by one. As Wells, the last before herself, made the jump, a section of the alien vessel nearest to them exploded outward. The shockwave sent Reed tumbling away from the shuttle, her tether line snapping from the stress. "Captain," Wells shouted over the comm, reaching out futilely as Reed drifted away from the shuttle. Reed activated her suit's maneuvering thrusters, but the explosion had damaged several systems. She could stabilize her rotation, but couldn't generate enough thrust to return to the shuttle. "Complete the extraction," she ordered. "That's an order, Lieutenant." For a moment, Wells hesitated. Then, with visible reluctance, he gave the signal to close the shuttle hatch. The craft began to pull away just as another explosion rocked the Krellick vessel. Reed continued to drift, watching as the shuttle accelerated toward the safety of the Athena. Her oxygen readout showed 17 minutes of breathable air remaining, not enough for another rescue attempt. "Athena, this is Reed," she called. "Strike team extraction successful. Mission accomplished. Captain, we're tracking your position." Santos responded, his voice tight with concern. "Hold tight. We're coming for you." Reed knew the Athena couldn't risk approaching the disintegrating Krellick vessel. The quantum disruption spreading from the command nexus would interfere with the ship's systems, potentially stranding them both. "Negative, Commander," she replied calmly. "Maintain safe distance. That's an order." As she drifted, Reed had a perfect view of the ongoing battle. The Krellick fleet was in disarray, vessels colliding with each other as they attempted to flee or continue fighting without central coordination. The human ships pressed their advantage, targeting propulsion systems to prevent escape rather than destroying the alien vessels outright. The command ship where Reed had led her strike team was coming apart, sections of its crystalline hull breaking away as the quantum disruption spread throughout its systems. It was a testament to the effectiveness of their mission, but also sealed Reed's fate. "Captain," Dr. Nakamura's voice came through the comm. "I've been analyzing your suit telemetry. If you can redirect power from life support to your maneuvering thrusters, you might be able to reach the minimum safe distance for us to attempt a quantum extraction." Reed checked her oxygen levels again. "That would leave me with less than 3 minutes of air. Doctor. Yes, Nakamura admitted. It's not ideal. Reed smiled despite herself. A scientist's understatement if ever there was one. Worth a try, she decided. Redirecting power now. Using her suit's emergency override, Reed diverted power from life support to the maneuvering thrusters. The readout for her oxygen supply plummeted, but the thrusters responded with renewed strength. She oriented herself away from the disintegrating Krellick vessel and engaged full thrust. Athena, this is Reed. I'm attempting to reach minimum safe distance for extraction. Track my position. We see you, Captain, Santos confirmed. Continue on your current vector. Nakamura is preparing the quantum displacement system. Reed's vision began to blur as her oxygen levels dropped critically low. The thrusters were working, pushing her away from the dying alien ship, but it might not be enough. Her consciousness started to fade, the stars around her smearing into streaks of light. In her last moments of awareness, Reed thought she saw a shimmer in space ahead of her, the distinctive distortion of a quantum displacement field forming. Then darkness claimed her. Awareness returned slowly. First came sounds, the steady beep of medical monitors, the hum of ship systems. Then sensation, the feel of a bed beneath her, oxygen flowing into her lungs through a mask. Finally, Reed opened her eyes to find Admiral Chen standing beside her bed in the Athena's medical bay. "Welcome back, Captain," the Admiral said with a rare smile. That was quite the extraction. Reed removed the oxygen mask. The strike team. Her voice was hoarse from disuse. "All accounted for. Lieutenant Wells has been running your bridge crew with admirable efficiency during your absence." The Krellick. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. In full retreat, once their command structure was disrupted, their rigid hierarchy worked against them. Individual ship commanders couldn't adapt quickly enough to our tactics. Reed tried to sit up, wincing at the protest from muscles that felt as though they'd been torn apart and reassembled. Which, in a way, they had. Quantum displacement was never meant for living organisms. Dr. Nakamura said you might experience some discomfort, Chen noted. The emergency extraction pushed the displacement system well beyond its design parameters. She's quite pleased it worked at all. Remind me to thank her, Reed said dryly. What's our status? Earth is secure, for now. The Krellick have withdrawn beyond the orbit of Pluto. We're tracking them, but they appear to be regrouping for a long-range jump out of the system. Reed nodded slowly. They'll be back. Not immediately, but eventually, with a larger force. Yes, Admiral Chen agreed. But when they return, they'll find humanity ready. The Prometheus Protocol is being expanded. The technology from the Europa artifacts is being implemented across the fleet. We're establishing advanced defense platforms throughout the system. She handed Reed a data tablet. The United Nations Security Council has authorized the formation of a new command, Solar System Defense Force. They want you to lead it, Captain, or should I say, Admiral Reed. Reed stared at the tablet, processing the implications. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger, more dangerous universe than most had imagined. There would be challenges ahead, diplomatic, technological, military, but they had proven themselves capable of facing an advanced adversary and prevailing. We should attempt communication with other spacefaring species, Reed suggested. The Krellick can't be the only civilization out there. We need allies. Admiral Chen nodded. Already in progress. We're preparing long-range probes with first contact protocols based on what we've learned. Reed handed the tablet back. I'll accept the command, but